All right. Welcome to the All American Hoops Podcast, episode 24. So we got like a brand new setup here. It was actually new last week, but I didn't really acknowledge it just because it was literally 20 minutes before the show started that I was informed with everything. But as per usual, we are under the Sports Fluent YouTube channel, no longer Chill on Hoops, which is fine because we're still under an awesome channel. But however, it's not me alone today. John will be joining me very, very shortly. But as you can see, new theme song. But however, we will still be playing the original All American Hoops theme song because definitely didn't want to miss that out. But just to go over today's podcast, we'll be discussing round 2 of the NBA playoffs. The Nuggets lost in heartbreaking fashion to the Minnesota Timberwolves in the biggest blowout, Game 7 ever. The Knicks also went down to the Pacers, blew a 3-2 lead, unfortunately for them. I'm actually able to win my Mets hat today because the Celtics aren't playing the Knicks. And of course, also the Mavs took down the Thunder as well. So we'll be talking about all that. And in addition to that, we'll be talking about both the Eastern and the Western Conference Finals in that regard. And the very end of the draft, John and I will be doing, the very end of the show, John and I will be doing a draft of all the remaining players left and see who can build the best 8-man roster. This is the All American Hoops Podcast. Welcome to the show. As I mentioned before, I'm Chris Driscoll, and as per usual, I'm joined by my older brother, John Driscoll.
Hey, H, very good intro, very cool. I like the setup.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's something new. I think it's going to work out really well. So we'll see if our brother Matthew enjoys it when he's back on the show next week. Which, speaking of which, is the second absence in a row. So I warned him last night that's his last unexcused absence before we have some real consequences.
Some are questioning his playoff ready ability. I don't know. He hasn't really shown up much these playoffs.
Best ability is availability. Not gonna lie. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But we will cut him some slack because both of us, John and I, are both college graduates. We both remembered how upset we were during that time. So Matt's going through exactly that right now, and I believe tonight is his last night before he moves back home. So yeah, hopefully he's back and ready for next show. But for now, we're cutting him slack. But next week is the week that we're going to say, okay, this has got to stop now. So, as I mentioned in the intro, we're talking about round 2 to begin. The past, that we'll talk about the future, and then of course we'll be doing our awesome draft. So, of course we're going to start off with the show with what was the craziest series. It kind of reminds me of the it wasn't as iconic or as big a comeback, but it almost did remind me of the 2016 finals because you had the Nuggets were like the juggernauts. It was a little different because they were losing at first, and they came back up 3-2, and everyone said, "Oh, who's going to stop this team? They're really unstoppable." Just for the Wolves to punch them back in the face, 2 games in a row, one of them being a 20 points comeback. So, John, what are your thoughts on that game, the series?
Yeah, I think the Timberwolves kind of surprised me twice. I mean, they took the first 2 in Denver. It was really impressive. I think the both of us were. I think we weren't as reactionary as some of the national media because I think that we were still fairly confident in Denver. I think we both picked Denver in 7. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then, it comes down to, it really came down to who wants to, throw the last knockout punch. And I was surprised that it was Minnesota on the road. I was very impressed by them. I think that while Ant Edwards is getting a lot of praise for how he played throughout the series, and he had a very good series, I think the overall team defense and players like Cat and Gobert played really, really well down the stretch. They had really great Game 7. So definitely surprised. I don't think it's like time for panic for the Nuggets. I think it just kind of came down to 2 really good teams going against each other, and one really good team just ended up winning the Game 7. So really impressed by the Timberwolves. And it's going to be an exciting Western Conference Finals.
That's for sure. Yeah. My first pick, I believe, my first pick was Nuggets in 6 actually. But however, once they fell down 2-0, that's when I stuck with Nuggets in 7. When we had Jacob on the show, we all discussed. Which shout out to him by the way, because I'm pretty sure that he picked the Timberwolves in the original spots when I first picked them out. Um, yeah, but you mentioned it all. Who knew? Yeah, obviously the formula. I think Rondo mentioned it. The formula isn't to stop Jokic altogether; it's just to make him work as much as possible. And he put up just as efficient numbers as he did against the Suns. It's just that the volume was down, just because Gobert, Katz, and Naz Reid were giving him such a hard time. And then of course as well the role players didn't really step up as much as what they needed to do. Jamal Murray played awesome in the first half of game 7, but for the series as a whole and in the first round as well, just a massive disappointment. And it's interesting just because he's one of those players who never really had like a dull playoff moments, because he's and definitely don't mean to hit on him, just because I never really had too high expectations for him. I never really considered him a top 20 player. um I didn't really have even though I didn't have really have a problem with people putting him in the top 20, because what I really care about when ranking players is how you do in the playoffs, and he truly capitalized on that. But however, I care about the playoffs, but I also care about your ability to lead a team, and he hasn't shown that he can do that. And he was exposed. I wouldn't say exposed, but it was like the first time that he really had to step it up as the number 2 option, and just really didn't do well there. Obviously, MPJ not so well as well, not so well. Aaron Gordon played fine. But yeah, we definitely want to give more props to the Nuggets. Sorry, props to the Timberwolves than we do hate to the Nuggets, just because it was it was the Timberwolves who just like, I definitely saw more as a Timberwolves like exceeding expectations than the Nuggets crapping the bed, because yeah, you mentioned it all. Anthony Edwards, emerging superstar, really proved it big time. And Dell's another guy, on another former guest on the show, mentioned on their show Pick a Side a few weeks, not a few weeks ago, just a couple of days ago. Ant went 6 for 24, just like Kobe did in the 2010 finals. Um, Superstars find a way to contribute other than scoring volume, and efficiency. He shut down Murray in the second half, and just really found a way to win. And of course, for the Wolves, yeah, you mentioned all three of the big men. Shout out Cat and Naz Reid, Jersey legends. But of course, I'm obviously not. I'm obviously not going to continue on with this segment without taking my victory lap on Rudy Gobert, because yeah, I mentioned it before. I don't evaluate my defense based on if you can shut down the best player or not, because that's only very little of what you can do. And you're not going to shut down Jokic one-on-one, as I mentioned in the beginning. Gobert is the best anchored. He's like the best like rim roam defender in the league by far. Some can argue he's the best defender. You can argue Draymond. You can argue Bam. You can argue even Giannis. Maybe not so much this year, but I think that Rudy Gobert last year he took a step back, but he's proven time and time again to be the one of the most impactful defenders of all time, and that's why he has 4 depoys. And every time I bring up Gobert, I'm going to bring him up. I really wish that we had Pete Foreman on to discuss, because I feel like we're getting up on him now without giving him a shot to fight back. So maybe we'll have him on next week or something. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we got on the Wolves Thunder. Obviously, the Wolves now will be playing the Dallas Mavericks, who downed the Thunder in 6 games. It was a battle. It was a battle between who many are debating are going to be the 2 best point guards of this era. Many argue that the 2 best point guards now, if you don't include Steph, like if you think that SGA and Luka are better than Steph now, I'm not gonna yell at you for that. But yeah, it was an interesting series to say the least, because if you were to ask me, what would it take for the Mavs to beat the Thunder, I would have said the Thunder have the significantly better team. However, Luka would have to be the overwhelming best player in the series in order for them to win. That's not what happened at all. So I don't know. Or yeah, John, I was wondering if you either had something to add on to that, or the series in general.
Yeah, I was really surprised actually. I think, which kind of leads me to, I mean, what we'll discuss later, but I don't know who to pick in the Mavs Wolves series, because I think I picked against the Mavs twice now, and they've proven me wrong. I picked the Clippers over them, and I picked the Thunder to win, and they keep proving me wrong. And I think, if you look at Luka over the course of the entire series, he was good, but he didn't like floor anybody with his performance. And that's not really a knock on him. It's more of just a compliment towards the entire Mavs. I think they're playing really good team basketball. Um, Kyrie again played a good series, but didn't really blow anybody away. I think they just played really good basketball. They've been playing really good defense since I want to say February. Um, really good team defense. So I think that's why they ended up beating the Thunder. I think you can probably cite playoff experience as one of the reasons why the Mavs won here. Because Kyrie has playoff experience. Luka, granted, he didn't make it last year, but he has playoff experience. He made a Western Conference Final 2 years ago. And I think just kind of going off that, like SGA doesn't have playoff experience, but he's not like 21 anymore. He's almost 26. Like after this year, I don't really think you can cite that as an excuse anymore. You can cite it as an excuse for a player like Jalen Williams, who I thought struggled at times during this series, but he is a young guy. I think he's 22.
Mm-hmm.
I really like him. I think he's a really good player, but I think the Thunder would have liked to see a little more from him. But great series. I think these teams are going to kind of square off for the next 2 years at least, depending on what happens with Kyrie or Luka. But I always think the Mavericks are going to try to surround Luka with as much talent as possible. But you look at somebody from the Mavericks like Lively. I mean, he played a really great series. And I think it's with the Mavericks, it's not really what we expected. Like you mentioned, if somebody told you before the Mavericks would have beaten the Thunder, you would have said, "Oh, I guess Luka and Kyrie had crazy series." No, they just played really good team basketball, and that's more impressive to me in a sense.
100%. Yeah, that's been Luka's number one knock is he's too ball dominant, and he's kind of like a James Harden type player. We can argue. I don't really know who I take as of now. Prime Harden or Prime Luka. I guess I'd probably lean Prime Harden because of his scoring volume, and overall efficiency. But yeah, Luka did what we really haven't known yet, and that's win without completely having control of the game. So that was pretty satisfying to see from that end. Yeah, but to bring up what you said earlier about how the Mavs turned it around since like the trade deadline. I'll go a little bit later because I said it was March 16th, I want to say. I have my article right in front of me here. So yeah, it was March 16th that they were as low as the 8th seed. And then after that, they went 12-3. And in that span, they were first in defense and 8th in net rating. So it's been like and again, I mentioned this in my article, primetimesportstalk.com. This was kind of a roller coaster season for the Mavs, and they certainly got hot at the right time because I saw them as like a Pacers team. They'd be just an overall offensive juggernaut with struggles on defense. But however, after trading for Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, their defense has gotten so much better. As I mentioned, for the last month of the season, they finished first in defense. So that's obviously super impressive to see. But however, they were lacking their offense as well. So even though their offense certainly wasn't 100% in the Thunder series, the Thunder were a top 3 defense. I want to say maybe. Oh no, they're the 4th behind the Celtics, the Wolves, and I believe the Cavs. So, it was a great defensive series for both sides, and I think we'll continue to see that in the Wolves series. So, you mentioned that you're having a hard time picking between the two. I picked the Mavs last series, and I did pick the Clippers over the Mavs. I've said this before in the show, and I said plenty of times off air. I decided with my heart in that series, not my head, because this was even after the Kawhi injuries came up. Like I said, oh no, he'll be fine. Like they're just being extra cautious, but they weren't. I think it was like a week or two after the series they said Kawhi still wouldn't be playing. So yeah, but yeah, the Mavs are an interesting team. As I mentioned, they're getting hot at the right time, but now they're playing an even better defense in the Wolves. Healthy Luka, I'm still taking over Ant. I don't know how healthy Luka is. I don't know if they're just using this injury as an excuse. But I'll probably go with the Wolves, just because they did, and maybe Wolves. I'm going to go Wolves in 7. I think that's yeah, that's what I went with in my article. Yeah, I'll go Wolves in 7, just because they did such an amazing job guarding Jokic that really at that point they can really figure out anything. And though guarding Luka on the perimeter would be tough, I don't think this version of Luka is going to be able to take over. Is going to be able to take over such an elite defense. I don't know who they're going to put on them. I don't know if it's going to be Jaden McDaniels or if it's going to be. Then I'm probably not going to do Ants just to begin the series. Maybe they'll do it towards the end if they're really struggling. But yeah, I'd go with Jaden McDaniels personally. But maybe Jaden McDaniels on Luka, and then maybe Ants or Conley on Kyrie, depending on how Conley reacts to things.
Yeah, I think I would, if I'm the Timberwolves, I would put Ant on Kyrie and then McDaniels on Luka to start. Right. And granted, they're going to be switching a lot, but I think those would be my primary defenders. Just, I think Ant, I think Kyrie will probably have times in this series where he cooks Ant, because I think he's one of the most, if not the most offensively talented player in the league. Just, based on scoring ability and just, you talk about handling and finishing at the rim, he's going to get his at times, right? But I think that Ant kind of provides a size advantage where he can use his strength to kind of maybe prevent Kyrie from getting to his spot. So I think that's interesting. I'm going to have to agree with you on your selection. I think that if I didn't pick against the Mavs in 2 rounds, I would have made my decision pretty quickly, but I was hesitant just because I didn't want to be wrong 3 times on the Mavs on this podcast. But I think I'll just take that risk at this point, because what's the difference between being, wrong 3 times versus 2 times? So I'm going to go Minnesota in 7. I just think while Dallas has really upped their defense over the past couple months, I think the Timberwolves still provide more of an edge on that side of the floor. So I'm going to go Minnesota in 7 as well.
Yeah, someone who picked who said Jalen Brunson wasn't part of club superstar, and someone who has severely underestimated him, and someone who said the Bucks were still threats to win the East, like a week left in the season. Yeah, don't be afraid of being wrong. There's certainly worse things said on the show before. But speaking of Jalen Brunson, we're gonna move on to the Knicks. I mentioned in the intro. Yeah, like I've been enjoying wearing this hat for the past couple of weeks, but I didn't want to do that if the Celtics were playing the Knicks, because that'd be I feel like it would be wrong. Going all out New York with the designs in the back. But the Knicks, another team that blew a 3-2 lead. Obviously, you can blame the injuries. You can blame Thibodeau. You could say the role players didn't step up. But just not a lot went right for the Knicks, especially in this series. And yeah, there's a lot to say, but at the same time, there's really not much to deep dive into it, just because a whole lot went wrong there.
Yeah, I think you can look at this series in a number of different ways. Obviously, I think that Knicks fans that are using injuries as an excuse, I think they have a valid argument. I think that if I were a Knicks fan, I would be singing that tune the entire playoffs, because you lost a ton of. You can consider Julius Randle as a star, but him aside, you lost a ton of good quality role players that make or break playoff games. And I always think back, especially with this series going 7, I always think back to game 3 in Indiana, where Nembhard hits I think it was Nembhard, right? Hits a 35-foot step back 3. And that's just things that happen on the road. Role players hit shots like that. They kind of feel the vibe of the crowd. And it's just, it's really tough, because you can point to that moment and say, if that doesn't happen, the Knicks win game 3, the series is over. And it's really tough seeing how, nobody lost at home until you got to game 7. And then that's why game 7s are so nerve wracking and so tough, because, the Pacers shooting splits, that's the kind of stuff that happens in game 7. Grant Williams hit 7 threes. He outperforms Giannis, stuff like that happens in game 7, even if it's on the road, and it sucks. But I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think the talking point this offseason will be obviously the Knicks injuries and how much Thibodeau's, I don't know how to phrase it, but like, non-minutes restrictions, how much that plays a factor. And I know a lot of those injuries kind of happened in bang bang plays that wouldn't have been avoided. But, you saw Josh Hart, who's like a guy who never really asks out. He had an abdominal strain and, he was hobbled by the end of that game. He asked out and Jalen Brunson hurts his hand.
Mhm.
You don't really know how much that was impacted by coaching. But I will say at that point, like what other option did he have but to play those guys like 40 minutes? I mean, everyone else was kind of hurt. They were hobbled. I think a healthy Knicks team probably wins in 6. I mean,
Mhm.
granted, like I mentioned with game 3, an unhealthy Knicks team almost won in 5. I mean, it sucks for Knicks fans. I thought they had a really good team this year. And I know a lot of Knicks fans were excited, and it's kind of an anticlimactic way to end the season. I will say it's going to be interesting this offseason to see what the Knicks do. Do they unload Julius Randle and like maybe a role player for another superstar or another number one kind of guy to support with Jalen Brunson? Or, I mean, aside from the Celtics, if you run it back with that team healthy, aside from the Celtics, they're the number one team in the East. But you got to think as a Knicks fan, you probably have, I mean, Jalen Brunson's 28. You probably have like, let's say 4 more years of his prime. I mean, he's only getting better, but like, let's say 4 years. You need to start like surrounding him with talent that can take down the Celtics because, the Celtics are about 5 years away from like ending their prime, right? You think of Tatum and Brown and, Derek White, obviously Drew and Al, but then you think of KP, who's 27. It's like you need to, like, I don't think Knicks fans are going to accept just like an Eastern Conference like boot every year in the finals. You need to find a team that's going to compete with a high level team, with a healthy Bucks team, with a healthy Sixers team. So it's going to be interesting. I think they can run it back, but it'll be interesting to see if they make any moves.
Yeah. Yeah, I do the same. Yeah, like you said, I do the same thing in blaming injuries. Because I definitely think most of it's valid. With that being said, a team. So the starting 5, if everyone stayed healthy all year long, which isn't realistic, it would have been. It would have been Brunson. It would have been Randall. Probably Mitch would have probably gotten more minutes than Hardenstein, Anunoby, and I guess Dante. Either Dante or Josh Hart, depending on who was either hotter or who would have matched up with the other team better. That is a very, very, very good team. I do not think this would have been a team that would have made. Yeah, they made noise by almost going to these conference finals. I think if every single team is healthy, I don't think there is a path to a Knicks championship because I think that Jalen Brunson would have to be surrounded with perfect role players around him to be the best player on a championship team. Um, and people are all like putting Becky Hammon on a pedestal for her take on Jalen Brunson not being the first option on a championship team. And while she might be right, Brunson played phenomenal all playoffs long with playing extra minutes. So I don't, yeah, I don't feel comfortable saying that she's in 1,000,000% right, but I do feel comfortable saying Brunson does need to be he really does need help to win a championship. I don't think Julius Randle can be that number 2 guy. We didn't see him play in the playoffs this year, so maybe I'm wrong there, but this is a nice story, which sounds disrespectful to a 2 seed, but but the thing is, we just don't know how all these other either up and coming teams or established teams are going to come back. Will Giannis come back to? Granted, we haven't seen Giannis go on a far playoff run since this will be the 3rd straight year that they didn't make it past the second round. So will Giannis come back? Will a healthy Embiid take like we saw that in the 6-game series? Will healthy Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and better role players around them? Is that a better team than the Knicks? The Miami Heat. If Jimmy Butler comes back healthy, I probably I'll definitely take Brunson over Jimmy Butler at this point. But I'm not counting out the possibility of Jimmy and Bam and Eric Spoelstra running laps around Tom Thibodeau for a coaching scheme. So those are four realistic teams that I see being better than the Knicks. I'm not saying that I would take all four teams ahead of the Knicks, but there's a real scenario where the Knicks finish as the 5, 6, 7 seed next year if they just decide to run it back. I said last year to not make that many changes. It's just because I wanted the Knicks to just owe to the fans, just be a good team, be like a likable team, which is exactly what they were this year. I think after 2 years of being a good team, you have to go all in with the stars you have and make every effort to do so. Is Paul George that guy? I don't know. I think that he's a significantly better player than Julius Randle, but I'm not sure if he is going to be that guy to replace him. There's other free agents that I can't think of right now, but is Carl Anthony Towns a bad example at this point because they made it so far, but I don't really know of many other stars around, but yeah, I don't know, but I do think that they should make some deals in order to make in order to potentially make the finals. Because yeah, I do think that Jalen Brunson can be a 1B option, maybe not 1B, but like a shared number one option on a championship team. And I think, yeah, as you said earlier, winters are always tighter than you think.
And I think that, you mentioned the Becky Hammon thing. I think when she said that, everyone came out and said, well, she's right. She's right. And
right.
I think we said that too. And it wasn't even a slight on Brunson, but you're lying if you said you didn't watch in this playoffs and you were like, she could be wrong.
Yeah.
He performed to a he played a very, very high level this playoff run. I was really impressed by him, and he's a likable guy. He's,
absolutely,
the foul grifting or whatever you want to call it aside, I think he's a really good player. And I think you're right. He can be that 1B, maybe that 1A, depending on who that 1B is,
right.
Kind of player. So, great season by the Knicks. I think a second round exit doesn't really define their season the right way. Because I think even with just like a healthy OG, I think they win that series. But yeah, that's about the Knicks.
Yeah, shout out to Uncle Blue and Uncle Tony. They've been Knick fans for long enough. I'm not going to give a shout out to Dean or Tim Maloney because they were jerks for a good amount of the school year of the season. But
shout out to JC though.
What was that?
Shout out to JC.
Oh, of course, John from JFK, who was on episode 4, I want to believe, of the show. So yeah, massive shout out to JC. Yeah, we gotta have him back on eventually. Cool. So now we'll jump in. I feel like we really didn't talk about the Pacers a ton, but we could just segue that into the Celtics series. The Celtics are negative 1,000 favorites against the Pacers, which I hate. The Pacer, like Vegas, like I tweeted this out. I don't know I actually don't know if I did tweet it out. I may have, but I don't think there is a bigger gap between how Vegas views a team and how the national media views a team, because Vegas loves the Celtics and they've loved them for years. They were the overwhelming favorites against the Heat last year. I believe after the Bucks were eliminated, they became a pretty strong favorite to win the title. But however, based on the way that you hear the media talk about them, you would think that they were like bottom half of the league. So, if you wanted to add on to any of that or just the series in general, you can go ahead. I just got to grab something from my backpack real quick. You can go ahead.
Yeah. So I think that when you mentioned it, the media treats the Celtics totally differently than Vegas odds do. And I think the Celtics fans, at least like the realistic ones, are like somewhat in the middle. I think Austin Rivers said something today. I mean, his quote was, I think Celtics fans are underappreciating the talent level of this Pacers team. I think true Celtics fans who watch this team every day are not second guessing or underappreciating or taking the Pacers team for granted. I think the Pacers are a very underrated team. And I think I forgot about it like 6 different times early in this playoff run that Siakam is on the Pacers, and he is a very good player. He averaged 21-7 through these first 2 rounds. He's been a very good addition to that team. Tyrese Halliburton, you can say, is sporadic. He's high and low, but when he's high, and you mentioned it in the group chat the other day, pretty obvious comment, but when he's going, it's really hard to beat that Pacers team. Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll do predictions. I have the Celtics in 6 here. I think the Celtics are definitely, definitely the more talented defensive team. I think when both teams are firing on all cylinders on the offensive side of the ball, I still give the advantage to the Celtics, even though I think the Pacers, when they're on, are probably a top 3 offensive team in the league. But like I said, I'm not speaking poorly on the Pacers. I think they're a very good, underrated team. And with a offense that can get that high at times, like obviously defense wins championships and you need defense, but like when your offense is that strong at specific times, that you can steal a couple games there. And if Indiana steals a game in Boston and then they win game 3 and they go up 2-1, I'm not saying hit the panic button, but like that changes the momentum of everything. Now the Celtics are playing from behind. Now you have to win game 4, you have to win game 5, and then you don't want it to get to 6 in Indiana. But I think if the Celtics, we've talked about it a bunch of times in this podcast, they take care of business, they play the game the right way, they don't play down to their opponents, they should be successful in this series. I have them in 6 because you have to account for them obviously losing game 2 on Thursday because they don't like playing game 2s at home. And I think that you have to account for Tyrese Halliburton going for 30 or Aaron Nesmith dropping like 45 at the Garden, because I think that's a very high possibility with a revenge game there. But not to, I mean, we didn't talk about the Pacers much because I guess we're going to talk about them a lot more now. But Miles Turner had a very good Eastern Conference semifinals. TJ McConnell, great minutes off the bench. We're going to see the white guy battle between him and Peyton Pritchard. Really excited for that. So I think it'll be a really exciting series. Anybody saying Celtics in 4 is very optimistic, and I really wish I had your confidence, but I've watched too much of Celtics basketball to say that with confidence.
Yeah. It used to be game 1s that the Celtics didn't like playing. In 2022, they screeched by the Nets, Jason Tatum at the awesome buzzer beater after him playing awesome for the first 3 quarters and then just not being aggressive at all in the 4th quarter, and then he finally got the buzzer beater. Then I want to say then it was after that the series they got killed by the Bucks at the Garden in game 1. And after that they were on the road, but they got killed by they got killed by the Heat in game 1, and then it was the year after. So 2023 now. They blow out the Hawks in game 1 in the first round, but then they lose to the Joel Embiid-less Sixers in game 1, and then after that they lose. They let up 46 points to the Heat in the 3rd quarter, which is outrageous. So yeah, it used to be game 1s, but now it's game 2s that they hate playing. So this I hope this team. I've been saying this year, this team is different, and if I'm right and I still say this team is different, I'm very, very it's weird. Like I was so confident up until today. Obviously that happens game time. On game day that you become less confident in the team, or more emotional maybe. But the Celtics are the much better team than the Pacers. The Pacers were our first in offensive rating. They were second for the regular season, and they are first this year. Granted, they played the deflated Sixers and Knicks, but good. And I said this in my article: good teams find a way to capitalize, and that's exactly what they did. So you, like we've been saying with the Celtics, you can't blame them for making the best of a bad situation. So, but I just explained all the reasons why the Celtics are the better team than the Pacers. But I think if the Pacers want to either put up a fight against the Celtics, or in the worst case scenario, if they win the series, it's gonna have to take them slowing down both Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, which shouldn't be a reality. But however, crazier things have happened. I think Aaron Nesmith is probably going to guard Tatum, and maybe Siakam guarding Brown. So both of those should be mismatches. However, Nesmith has done more impressive things than slow down Jason Tatum. So we'll see what happens there. Also, it's going to take Tyrese Halliburton probably playing like he's been the past couple weeks, and not like he played after the play-in. Not like he played post in season tournament. But yeah, I'm gonna go Celtics in 5. I do believe that, like I said, I do believe this team is different, and I do believe they're gonna take care of business. Hopefully, they win both home games, just because 2-0. Like I really do believe 2-0 is a like if a team goes up 2-0 and then they just lose one of those games on the road, that's less gut wrenching. Like it's like less of like a morale killer than what it is. However, it's not really a bad thing that it was. Excuse me. Yeah. It's not really a bad thing that it was a gut wrenching loss in game 2, because they ended up winning all 3 games. So maybe we'll see that again. But Celtics in 5. But I'm saying that I'm saying that like I'm being cautiously optimistic when I say that. Yeah, your Celtics in 6 picks certainly isn't a bad one, but if this team is who I think they are, I do believe they will win in 5. So being 12-3 heading to the finals would be awesome. 12-4 is still awesome as well, but 12-3 would be an awesome case scenario. Who knows? I don't even want to entertain the possibility of a sweep, because like, okay, it's a possibility, but it's not really likely in a conference finals. But yeah, it'd be nice if we can come back in the pod next week, being in a good mood from them sweeping on Monday night. But we shall see there. But before we move on to the to the Wolves Mavs, who do you think is going to be? Like, oh wait, no, I brought up the X Factor actually. But yeah, is there anybody else that you think might be an X Factor besides Tatum and Brown?
Honestly, I think the X Factor, I mentioned him before, I think Peyton Pritchard could be an X Factor coming off the bench, because you saw the impact that TJ McConnell had in that Knicks series. You're going to need to find someone who can match that energy and who can play fast with fresh legs off the bench when you're kind of going through the slugs of the third and fourth quarter. I think Peyton Pritchard is my choice. But just to touch on something also, I think the goal of this series, and maybe it's an optimistic goal, I think the goal should be through 4. You should be coming back to Boston with the opportunity to put the series away. And, everything else aside, obviously winning in 5 is better than winning in 6. It's silly to say that, but coming back to Boston with a 3-1 lead gives you an opportunity to rest Kristaps Porzingis again. If you come back to Boston tied 2-2, or God forbid, let's just say tied 2-2, and then you're kind of not forced, but there's more pressure to kind of not rush him back, but be like, hey, Kristaps, like, you all right? Like, you want to play? But I think coming back 3-1 gives you the opportunity to say, okay, rest another game. If we lose, then we're going to need you for game 6. But I think you need to play with urgency and realize the hand you've been dealt. You have the opportunity to beat this team. I think if they play well, they do have an opportunity to win this series in 5. But like we said, hopefully this team is different. We've seen in the past them kind of play with their food and go down in series, and then you're kind of rushing guys back when they're still hurt. You don't want to be put in that situation.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, we'll see how things work out. Yeah, game 1 tonight at 8:00. Yeah, one more matchup is going to be the Horford versus Miles Turner matchup. So yeah, hopefully Horford holds his own there, and then Luke Kornetz continue to do what he has done the past few weeks, and to just be a guy in his role. So yeah, should be interesting to say the least. But on to the West, the second Eastern Conference Finals, we got the Mavs versus the Wolves. Oh yeah, we talked about both teams a good amount. I kind of talked a little bit about it. But I'm just interested to see how. I talked about how impressed I was with the Wolves shutting down Jokic. It's going to be completely different for how to shut down Luka, simply because it's first of all, it's on the perimeter. Second of all, the Nuggets really didn't have like Jamal Murray played awful, so he wasn't really supposed to be the second guy. Kyrie wasn't as aggressive last series, but however, in the first round against the Clippers, he was absolutely awesome. So, that's why I mentioned that he was the X factor. So, because like if the Wolves, like if their primary goal is to just slow down Luka and then see what happens with everyone else, Kyrie will be the X factor there. So, I don't know what other goals they might have. Maybe it is to just let Luka cook and see if he's able to do that. But if he's not, then they're gonna have a very hard time winning the series if that's their approach. But yeah, I don't know what your thought process on that is.
Yeah, I'm actually predicting a very good series from Luka here. I think he kind of provides them with a mismatch in a sense because your best two. Actually, let's say your best defender is Rudy Gobert. He's not really going to go match Luka on the perimeter. Karl-Anthony Towns is definitely not going to match Luka on the perimeter. And if you put Ant Edwards on him, there's a size advantage there for Luka. Luka could probably have some success with him there. And then if you're going to move your best perimeter defender off of Kyrie, then who's guarding Kyrie? So I know we both said Mavs in 7, but I think the pathway to a Mavs finals appearance is Luka, dominating his mismatches, and I think he'll have a pretty big series.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm also interested to see how Ant reacts to the Mavs defense as well, because Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. are definitely better perimeter defenders than Luka, Kyrie. Derek Lively Jr. has been not Lively. PJ Washington has also been a great two-way player as well, so he might be another X factor. If he continues to play like prime Klay Thompson, then we'll see. Well, I think that's going to be another X factor as well. But I just think the Wolves have given significantly better teams, including the Nuggets, and the Celtics for that matter, a harder time. So like while I'm projecting the Mavs to put up a good fight, I do think that the Wolves take care of business here, and and I do think that the Wolves also have the coaching mismatch. They have Finch and their other assistant coach, I forgot his name, versus Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd's been awesome, but I don't think he's as good as Finch. Okay. So that leads us to the most fun segment of the day. John and I will be drafting all the remaining players in the playoffs. So, John was generous enough to let me go first. And before we start, I was just we agreed before the show started that I'd be going first. But I don't know how many of the viewers here watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but it almost made me think of The Heist, because like all the Heist episodes where Jake Peralta and Captain Holt and Amy Santiago, they all like have like these year-end plans for what happened. So I don't know if John came up with the masterminds of deciding letting me go first to see what happens, but we'll have to see what happens and if any of us had a good strategy there. But I brought up the draft to him last night, so I don't know if he planted any seeds in my head for what happened there.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so I didn't tweet this out, and I'm really upset that I didn't. But however, I did text multiple group chats that Jason Tatum is the best player remaining in the playoffs, so he will be going first in my team, and John now has the next 2 picks.
Next 2 picks, I think, are pretty. I don't want to say easy, but I'm going to go with Luka and Ant.
Okay. You're unfortunately being unbiased in that situation here.
It's really tough because I already think your team wins because it has Jason Tatum.
Yes. I will be rounding out the best duo in the league by including Jaylen Brown on the team. So yeah, very happy with that. I cross him out there. With my 3rd pick, I'm going to continue with the agenda. I don't know. You got Tatum and Brown, who are both phenomenal perimeter defenders and elite scorers. So we have enough scores for now, but I am going to continue to round out an elite defense by putting in my guy, Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I kind of handcuffed myself here with 2 guards. So I am going to, So obviously I have to fill out It'd be foolish to go bench right now, but I mean, so for we're doing position based. I have Luca as my point guard and Ant as my shooting guard. Um, Tons of good guards right now, but I'm gonna go at my power forward center position for Karl-Anthony Towns.
Yeah, that's where I would have gone.
I have a second pick now too, right?
Yep.
So then I'm going to round out my big man tandem with Miles Turner.
Good pick.
Have to add some more defense there.
Yeah. If you're going to roster, if this year's proven anything, it's that roster construction matters and not just star power.
Mm-hmm.
So I got 2 wings, 2/3, 3/4, and a guy who plays strictly the 5. So I could use some playmaking here. I could even use another stretch 4 or something. Can't have too many of those. Do I continue to go defense, or do I let something else happen here? People don't remember. Despite there being a ton of locker room issues, Kyrie Irving and Jason Tatum were a great duo. Like the two of them were phenomenal, especially in 2018. When the two of them were hot, and then even 2019, the two of them enjoyed each other's presence, but it was a lot of other people. So yeah, I'm gonna go Kyrie Irving with this pick. And then I have one more pick to round out my starting 5. Don't even have to round my starting 5, to be honest with you. I could just go better player, but I got a 1/2, so I think I got to include another stretch 4-ish guy. I will most likely go. You know what? This guy definitely isn't a top 10 player, but I am going to go Jaden McDaniels as for my next pick. Round out my perimeter defense, especially with the guy who's kind of weak in defense in Kyrie.
All right, so I have 2 picks here. This is a tough one. Do I fill out? I mean, because Miles Turner and Cat, you could see as they could do 4-5, right?
Right.
But you can't really. There's not many small forward options unless you can like bump Luca to the 3. You know, it's been done, but it's not really like he's a 3. So first, I'm going to pick my first bench guard, and that's going to be Derek White. He provides me with a lot of good defense and good shooting, obviously. Yeah, really weak 3 guards. Now that I'm really looking at it, I guess we're ruling out KP here, though, right? I think we probably would have taken him already.
Yeah. We don't have to, though. Yeah, if you wanted to pick him, that's fine. But if not, you can.
Yeah, I mean, he would just be like a bench guy for either of us,
right?
Because I can't really put him at the 3. So I'm gonna put Siakam as my 3 and round out.
Yeah,
that's small forward position.
Yeah, that's what I would have done.
You can take KP though. I wasn't handcuffing anyone.
No, I got you. No, yeah, I got you. So the bigger question is, do I want to go? I mentioned that. Yeah, I got 4 elite defenders, and I'm calling Tatum Brown elite defenders because that's exactly what they are. It's a crime that I'm not even asking. I don't think either of them should have made the all defensive team, but I do think both of them should have gotten more votes. So yeah, I'm obviously Gobert and McDaniels, both elite defenders. Do I want to go another great backup point guard for defense, or do I want to go a better do I want to go the best player on the board because we already have a good starting five? I think I am going to go with the backup point guard option. I'm going to take Jrue Holiday.
Good pick. I would have taken that too.
And I don't have much size outside of Gobert, so I am going to go with a guy who already plays backup, and I'm going to go with Naz Reid.
Damn. All right. I guess I have like not crazy size across the board besides Miles Turner and Cat. I will take with my first pick. I'll take another guard off the bench because I think we need a pure point guard because I could always slide Derek White to shooting guard position. So I'm going to take Halliburton as my other guard.
He's a top 5 player in the series, but he fell to 14. That's pretty wild.
High level guards.
Yeah.
And I'm stuck here because I need a big man. Is it disingenuous to take KP here?
No.
Yeah, I just don't know what he's going to play like.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I'll go KP to round it out.
Nice. To round out my team, got one more pick. What time is it? Okay, we're playing time. Okay. Got a pretty well-rounded starting five. Got a great backup point guard defensively and a good backup rim defender who can also get some buckets. Naz Reid. Just need another either wing guy or. You know who was also a great duo in 2018 and 19 was the pick and roll between Kyrie Irving and Al Horford. So screw roster construction and in with good vibes and friendship, going with my guy, Al Horford.
Very good.
I can't wait to post this on Instagram and people making comments about. Can you tell the two Celtics fans are the ones that drafted out this roster?
What did we pick? We picked 6 Celtics guys.
Yeah, 6 of the 16. Which
I mean, who else would you have picked?
What was that?
I mean, like who else would you have picked? You know.
I mean, I could have gone PJ Washington as like another wing guy. I could have gone Aaron Nesmith, honestly, as well. Obi Toppin, Mike Conley is another great backup point guard, but. Yeah, I think both of us definitely drafted the best we could with especially in your case. Yeah, you weren't really dealt with the best hand just because of I kind of approached the like the roster construction path, which it would have been tough for you to round that out too. So
I think with the exception of Kyrie, you have all two-way guys. I'm struggling on defense, but I mean,
it's. What you got Turner, who's an elite rim defender. You got Anthony, who's a good, pretty good on perimeter as well. Derek Wright, shout at him, all defensive second team today, and then KP, who can obviously, and Siakam's not bad either. So you're fine. Besides Halliburton, and I feel like the only, I guess Luka, Cat, and Halliburton are the 3 liabilities. But it's not the end of the world. But definitely be posting this on both Instagram and Twitter tonight to see. To see what the general population thinks, but I don't think it should be too lopsided.
Very good draft.
Free drafts, I'm not opposed to that. But
no, I said very good draft.
Very good draft, 100%. This would have been interesting if Matt was here because I'm assuming that we would have done 6 or 7, not 8, but the very it would have been a very different strategy for him. But yeah, I would have had to put him at 1 or 3 because we didn't want him to bitch and moan about him only being about him and not having a back-to-back pick. Yeah, I feel bad about piling onto him, but however, that's what you get when you don't come on the show 2 weeks in a row. So, all right, awesome show. So, John, as per usual, thanks for coming on. Got game 1 tonight, Celtics versus Pacers. Big one. It's going to be awesome seeing basketball basically just being played every single night. Celtics Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday. So, like as I said, Monday night would be an awesome night to sweep, but knock wood. I hope that and keep in mind, I'm not jinxing at all. I'm just saying it would be very cool if they could. I'm not giving any type of predictions. I already said they're going to win them in 5. So, but being able to record on Tuesday stress-free would be very nice. As per usual, I didn't even put up the banner today. That's a bummer. As per usual, give a follow to all my accounts, All American Hooper on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Haven't been too active on TikTok lately, but definitely going to change soon. Also follow my producer, Sports Fluent, on X and TikTok, Sports_Fluent, I believe. We're gonna be the show is gonna be dropping some big news lately, so keep an eye out for that. That's gonna be either next week or the week after. I believe it's probably gonna be next week though. But yeah, last thing, take a look at my column, primetimesportstalk.com. I wrote a very long piece on my picks for the conference finals and gave some pretty deep analysis for each one. So definitely was very happy with that. But as per usual, thanks so much for coming, for watching live. Those of you who are watching later, thanks for doing that. But thanks for everyone tuning in, and I hope you all have a great night.